Alrighty, if you watched my video yesterday, you will know that I played a little game of Guess My New Gun. And if you read the comment section in that video, you're about to realize a lot of people guessed it right. A lot of people guessed it was an arsenal gun, and as you can see here, it is an arsenal firearm. Now this is upside down, but you'll see in a second what gun it is. And one thing I want to say quickly is this gun box has two different types of clasps on it, so I had to leave it open here before the video because when I try to open it, I get confused because there's two different types of clasp. I've never seen that on a gun box before. But getting back to what gun it is, like I said, it's an arsenal firearm, and it is the Arsenal Strike 1, as a lot of people guessed. Now this gun has got some very unique features, and I'm going to go over those features really quickly right now. Now I've only shot this gun once. I shot one magazine, so that's all I had time to shoot it today before I had to come home and get ready and go to the movies. So didn't have a lot of time to shoot it, but I want to tell you about the design features of the gun right now. It's a little too early for me to tell you whether it's a great gun or whether you should own one, etc. I'll have to own it for a little while. I will say I was impressed with how it shot today, but like I said, I'll have to see more reliability from it, have to see more performance from it before I recommend it. But that doesn't stop me tonight from just showing you the features of this gun and what makes it kind of a unique gun. As you can see right off the bat, the gun is a little unique looking. All these lines, all the level planes are all weird. I'm used to seeing a gun, the back here is usually pretty level with this up here. This is usually pretty level across through here. The proportions of this gun and the way it lines up, the levels of it is just odd. And there's reasons it's odd, but the first thing you notice when you look at it is it's just not quite like every other gun looks-wise. Now another thing you're probably going to notice right off the bat is the bore axis. If you look right here with the barrel, look how low it is. It's like right on the trigger. And the locking mechanism is up here a little bit. It's a little further forward, and this barrel sits so low. So that gives this gun a really low bore axis. And that's one of the main design features of this gun, that the bore axis is so low on this gun, which does help with recoil. Now another thing you'll see here with this gun is, as I rack the slide, the barrel does not tilt. It doesn't even rotate. Now my PX4 Storm has a non-tilting barrel, but it rotates. This one does nothing. It's almost like a blowback gun. It's almost like a fixed barrel, but it's not. I don't know how well you can see inside there, but on the barrel there's almost no feed ramp. There's almost no need for one. The barrel sits so low that the rounds feed almost straight out of the magazine into the barrel, which does help with reliability and speed of the rounds getting into the chamber. So that makes the gun cycle faster. Another factor that contributes to the gun cycling faster is, since the barrel doesn't tilt up, you need less space here for the rounds to come out. Therefore, it makes the slide stronger, and it makes the gun open and close faster because there's less space here. So when your gun locks and unlocks quicker and in a shorter distance, it makes the gun cycle faster. So that, combined with the low bore axis, makes this gun very easy to shoot quickly. It doesn't have much flip, doesn't have much recoil, and it locks and unlocks, basically puts a round in the chamber really quickly, so you're able to fire off rounds in fast succession easily. So those are the features that make the gun a little bit different, and you might not think that's much, but I don't think they're reinventing the wheel here. They're just making some minor changes to improve performance, and those are the changes that they made. Now, the barrel is probably the biggest change. The barrel, having that little locking mechanism here so that the barrel doesn't tilt, is probably the most revolutionary thing they've done with this gun. Although I don't know if I'd call it revolutionary because it is an older design. It's nothing that they've just created. They've just tweaked it. Now, the type of person that buys this gun probably isn't buying it for looks, because let's face it, it's kind of ugly. My Chiappa Rhino is probably not the ugliest gun I own now. But like I say, you're not buying this gun for looks, you're buying it for performance. But I still want to cover the build quality, the finish, etc. on this gun. Now, first off, I will say I am extremely happy overall, but there are a few issues I have with this gun. Now, one is just specific to this gun. You can see there's a blemish right there in the metal, but if I decide to keep the gun, I can fix that. That's not a big issue. But there's also some other troubles with this gun here too, finish-wise. As you can see here, the finishing on this right here, the milling, is not perfect. I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but you can see that lines aren't perfect right there. If you can see that, you can see it really well right there, I think. But it's just not perfect. Now, like I say, I can fix that too. I can smooth all this out by hand and just re-bead blast the top if I decide I'm going to keep this gun. So that's not the biggest issue in the world. But overall, it's put together pretty well. The finish is pretty decent. The design is pretty good. It's put together solidly. It's really solid, actually. And when I show you the inside, you'll see why I think it's so solid. But on the outside, it's pretty good. Like I say, there's a few minor things. I'm really picky. They kind of bother me a little bit, but I can fix them. Otherwise, pretty good gun on the outside. It looks pretty decent, as a matter of fact. I actually kind of like the looks of it, even though it's very ugly. Now, one real positive I can give it as far as build quality goes is the parts are really nice, like the slide release here, or slide lock, as most people will actually say it is. It's really nicely made. It's not just like a piece of stamped metal. It's actually formed. It's really pretty nice. That actually is a nice touch if you ask me. The magazine release is nice and big. It's reversible. It comes with another one in the case. So that's a nice design feature too. Really well made. Now, another thing I also like, when you disassemble this gun, you just push this pin out right here and it stays in the gun. It doesn't come out. I'll show you that later when I'm taking it down, but I like that feature too. Now, one thing I don't really like is, if you see these sights right here, they're part of the back plate. I really don't know if I like that at all. I'm sure you can probably buy back plates later that don't have that on there, and maybe have the slide milled if you want to for a regular rear back sight. But right now it's part of the back plate, not too crazy about it. And the sights themselves kind of suck. It's like a little white dot that you really can't see. I mean, when you're looking down this sight line with a stainless sight and a stainless light with just little white dots on it, you kind of lose everything. Now, the little white dots go all the way through on the sights. So I don't know if you could maybe take those out, punch them out, and put some fiber optic in there or something to give it a little bit more color. Or maybe you could just paint in the sides here. But either way, I'm going to have to see if I can do something about these sights, because I just can't see them very well at all. Now, one more thing about the exterior of the gun. If you looked at all the pictures of this gun, it doesn't have this lip on the back here. It doesn't have this beaver tail. It's like that right there. That's what you get in the pictures. And it doesn't have this little bump right here. Now, I will say, you might think this little bump looks like it'd be uncomfortable, but when you're holding the gun, you don't even notice it. When you're shooting the gun, you don't even notice it. So it's just a looks thing. But I'm wondering, is this a newer gun and they added this since they took the pics? Or is this an older gun and they've taken it off and taken pictures of the new guns? So right now, I don't really know if it's an older model or a newer model, if the newer ones have this and the older ones don't, or the older ones don't have it and the newer ones do, etc. Now, this gun has a very low serial number. It's like 169. That's the serial number on this gun. So I can't imagine it's a new model unless they started new production numbers when they started producing the gun. But, I don't know. So if you know that, feel free to let me know. Is the beaver tail part of the new model or the old model? Did I get an old one? Did I get a new one? Whatever. Just let me know if you know, because I have no clue. Now, I'm going to hold the gun really awkwardly here to do this so that you can see what I'm doing. But to take it down, you just take tension off the slide here and just pop this through. Then on the other side, you just grab this, pull it out. And like I say, it stays in the gun. Drop your magazine. Then you just pull the slide right off. Comes right off just like that right there. Now first, let's deal with the frame on the inside. As you can see, it's like one big piece here. It's like one big solid piece, not a little couple of rails here and a little couple of rails there. It's one big solid piece. And it looks really good. It looks really sturdy, looks really well designed. I really like this. It also gives you that effect that when you look through the gun here, you're not seeing daylight through the gun every time you look through it. You can't read a newspaper through the gap between your slide and your frame, because it's all filled in here with one big solid piece here. Now this, I'm sure, makes the gun very rigid, very solid, gives you good accuracy, etc. So I'm really liking this design right here. Now, while I got the slide here, I'll show you one more little thing I do like on the bottom half of this gun, and that's the trigger. It's nice and wide, it's nice and flat, it feels really good. I like the trigger. I'm not talking performance of the trigger, I'm just talking the design and the feel against my finger. Now, when you look at the inside of the slide, it's a lot like looking at the inside of the frame. Everything is very tightly fit, everything is very well finished, a lot of stainless steel, looks really good. Another advantage of this design of this barrel is it allows there to be a very tight barrel to slide to frame fit. The tolerances are very tight, so it makes everything look very well put together. I mean, you can just look at this gun and tell it's a little bit different. It's really nicely put together. It pretty much just comes apart like any other gun, except that there's this little part right here. This is the little mechanism that holds the barrel in place. This is the revolutionary part of their design. Now, I'm not going to get too technical on this part, because really I can't right now. I'm not very prepared for this. But this is very much like the little rolling block on the PX4 Storm that holds the barrel and makes the barrel rotate, except this holds the barrel in place and doesn't make it rotate. So I'm really not sure exactly how it works yet, but I'll look it up and I'll figure it out sooner or later. Now here's the barrel itself, big solid stainless steel barrel. A little different looking because it's got that little notch cut out there for that little cam, but nice looking barrel, not nothing really fancy looking about it, just a good barrel. Now when you look in here, you can see the little firing pin there that comes back out the back side here and gives you that little cocking indicator when the gun is cocked. I'm not crazy about those, but at least they didn't paint it bright red. It's still stainless steel, so when it sticks out the back, it's a little stainless steel pin sticking out the back, not a big red dot like some of the other gun manufacturers like Walther do. So it's not that bad. Now as I'm putting it back together here, I will say one thing. The guide rod, is plastic. That I can live with. I've never had a plastic guide rod fail, but if they start making stainless guide rods for this, I will get one. Okay, now that I got back together, I will say this gun comes apart easily, goes back together, maybe even a little bit easier. Really easy to take down, put back together. This gun will be a breeze to take care of. So it's going to get high marks on that. So on build quality, gets really good marks. Finishing, maybe a B minus, a C plus on finishing. But like I said, I can touch that up a little bit myself. And as far as design, it is unique. It's very different than any gun I've ever owned. So far, I really liked the way it shot today, but I haven't shot enough to really say for sure. I mean, you can only reinvent the wheel so much. My biggest concern with this gun would be its size. It does hold 17 plus 1 rounds, so it holds a lot of rounds, but it's a really big gun. A lot of times people say, well, it's big, but it's going to be able to be fired quickly. You're going to be able to get off more rounds more accurately. And, I think that's great, but sometimes that can be counteracted by the size. Because, to me, sometimes the most important factor of a gun is going to be how quickly you get it from your holster to your target. Not how quickly you fire off a bunch of rounds, but how fast you get the gun pointed where it needs to be pointed. And being bigger might reduce that speed enough that it counteracts being able to fire quickly and more accurately. So in the end, it's going to be a decision what you think is more important if it does pan out to work as well as I think it's going to work. But like I say, you can't only reinvent the wheel so much, and I don't think they really reinvented the wheel here. They just made some changes to make it more accurate, shoot a little smoother, and if you can handle a big gun and you want it to shoot a little smoother, it might be for you. But like I said, it's a little big. So I'll kind of show you an example of how big it is. Now here it is next to my Glock 19, and as you can see, it is much longer than my Glock 19. A lot of people think it's a tiny gun. It's not a tiny gun. It's a pretty big gun. Now it does hold more rounds than my Glock 19. It's like a full-size Glock. But most people, when they want a comparison for carry, they want to compare it to the Glock 19 because that is one of the premier carry guns. Now, as you can see, height-wise, it's also considerably taller than my Glock 19. Now, like I said, it does hold more rounds, but it is considerably taller. And as far as thickness goes, it's about the same. Now, I think a lot of people were under the impression that this is a very thin gun. It's not that it's thin, it's just that it's not very tall. It's not tall from the trigger to the top of the gun. That's where it's thin. So as you can see, it's by no means a tiny gun. From the bottom of the magazine to the top of the sights, it's like 5 3/4 inches. And from the end of this barrel to the end of this beaver tail is nearly 8.5 inches. So it's not a small gun. And it's about 1.3 inches thick from side to side. And that's about standard for a gun. So it's a big gun. Now, one thing I will have to call a little bit of shenanigans on them, they say it's 26 ounces. Now, I have weighed this gun, and it is not coming in at 26 ounces for me. In fact, my SIG M11A1 is 32 ounces, and my CZ75B stainless is 37 ounces, and this gun is coming in right between the two of them at about 34 ounces. So either I got an extremely heavy gun or they're a little off on their measurements because it is not coming in at 26 ounces for me. In fact, it's heavier than my SIG, but it's a little lighter than my CZ, so it's kind of in the middle there. And it's comparable to both as far as capacity. One holds 15 plus 1 and one holds, I believe, 16 plus 1. This holds one more round than one of them, 2 more rounds than the other, but it's considerably larger than both of them. And like I just said, it's kind of like in the middle weight-wise. So like I said, in the end, whether this gun turns out to be revolutionary or just a little bit better at certain things that makes it worth it, or a little bit better at some things but worse at others that makes it not worth it overall, that all remains to be seen. We'll see how that turns out in the end. But I just wanted to give you a look at it here, talk to you about some of the features of it, and just tell you what my first initial impressions were. And so far, those impressions are pretty good, but I've got a little bit of doubt about whether its performance will outweigh its size, but we'll see. You ain't even my real dad. Uh-oh. Which way does this go in? What's the freaking front of this thing and what's the back of this thing? It's shaped to where it can only go in one way. Thank God, the morons like me would have gotten it out and not paid attention which way it went back in. Small gun. In fact, from the end of this barrel to the end of this beaver tail is almost 8.5 inches. Fuck, I just measured that. How tall is that? 5 3/4. God damn, I can't remember that.